Hey guys, hope you're having a nice day so far. So, a big part of the economy that we're going to learn about today is the stock market. Something I know you guys, I'm sure, have heard of, but maybe don't have a full understanding of what it actually is and how it works. So, you can use these slides in this video and the other resources to fill out the guided note sheet. Some things we're going to learn about in this, if my slides work. We'll learn what stock market is, what shares are, some other things like indexes, like the NASDAQ and Dow Jones, and then bull and bear market. So I know these mean nothing to you now, but I promise they're not too hard to understand. So why should we care about learning about the stock market? So it's a huge part of our economy. If you understand how it works and how you can utilize it, it's a great way to build up wealth for things like retirement, because I'm assuming you don't want to maybe work until you're 85 years old. And also, we're just always hearing about it, so it's really, really helpful to have at least a base understanding of what it really is. So, after this video, I strongly recommend you watch this video right here, at least the first 6 minutes or so. It does a good job of explaining like the basics of what the stock market is, why companies will sell stock, and why people buy stock. So you can either watch it after this video or pause this and go into the slides and play the video. Your call, but please, please watch at least the first 6 minutes of that. So basically, what is the stock market? It's a place where you can buy and sell tiny little chunks of ownership in a company. So it's not really like a store that I would drive to buy something. Like I buy and sell stock myself, and I do it on my phone. So a lot of the stock market today is it's digital. It's on the internet, so it's not really a physical place you go to. But what you're actually selling, when I'm saying little chunks of ownership in a company, we call those shares. So if I buy a little bit of Facebook stock, I'm buying shares of Facebook. And what that actually means, I'll just keep going with Facebook as an example, is if I buy some Facebook stock or shares of Facebook, that stock and share kind of mean the same thing, I am actually now a part owner of that company. So I own a teeny, teeny, tiny little bit of Facebook. So if I buy one share, I own maybe 0.00001% of that company, maybe even less. I'm kind of making up numbers here, but it's a teeny tiny little bit. So what you can think of it like is if I buy a share of Facebook, you can think of it, actually this picture does a good job of modeling it. Think of Facebook, think of the company as a pizza. If you're buying a share of Facebook, you're buying one little slice of pizza. If Facebook is successful and it grows, it's like the pizza gets bigger. So my slice of pizza also gets bigger, aka it becomes more valuable, it becomes worth more money. If Facebook struggles as a company and they I don't know, start losing members and start making less money, that overall pizza is going to shrink in size, and therefore each slice, including my slice, gets smaller and smaller, and therefore is worth less money. So how do you make money on the stock market? In real simple terms, you pick a company that you think is going to grow and be successful over time. You buy some of their shares, some of their stock, and you wait and you hope that the company is successful and their stock price goes up, aka you hope the pizza gets bigger and therefore your piece of that company gets bigger. And then you can sell your shares, sell your piece of pizza for a profit. So it is basically gambling because you're not guaranteed that the company will be successful. A lot of the times the companies will struggle and the value of your shares will actually get smaller and you'll lose money. So, as I said, it is gambling, but if you understand how the stock market works and you do it kind of the boring way, it's gambling where you have pretty good odds. For example, this is kind of the long-term average price of kind of how things are in the stock market overall. And you can see like it's kind of a roller coaster, goes up and down constantly, but the general direction has pretty much always been up. It can be a wild ride along the way, but if you just buy stock and just hang on to it for a real long time, odds are you have a pretty good bet that it's going to increase in value and you can make some money. So this is how a lot of people build wealth for retirement. Because if you just leave money sitting in a bank account, that money is actually going to lose value because of inflation, which we kind of talked about. All right. What's next? So give you an idea of like just how much your money can increase. So these are some pretty major companies, as you guys know. But if you invested $1,000 in these companies 10 years ago, if you invested $1,000 in Google, that now is worth $6,000. So it's almost like you put $1,000 in a box, left it there for 10 years, and then you open it up again, and boom, it's just magically turned into $6,000. If you did that with Facebook, now it'd be worth $9,000. Amazon would be $19,000. So that's, again, $1,000 turns into $19,000. That's awesome. Netflix would be $17,000. Tesla, which has gone up a crazy amount, it would be worth $165,000. So if 10 years ago you thought Tesla was going to be this really successful company and you invested in them, you made a lot of money. Bitcoin, which is not a stock, but it's included on here, your $1,000 would grow to $278,000. So pretty crazy increase right there. But I want to stress, these companies, nowadays, of course, we're like, oh, of course their stock went up. Of course they're successful. 10 years ago, we didn't know that. You had to guess. So trying to guess which companies are going to be really successful 10 years from today, it's a guess. We don't know what's going to happen. So just because these companies did really great the last 10 years doesn't mean they'll go great the next 10 years. We don't have a crystal ball, and that's where that gambling kind of component comes from. So we can't see the future. All right, so what can make the price of a stock go up and down day to day or hour to hour? Some things can be missed opportunities. So example, Kodak was a really important major company that made cameras, but more importantly, film. So if you don't know how cameras used to work, you'd buy a little roll of film at Target or something and cost you $5 maybe. You load it into your camera. You get maybe 24 pictures with that. Once you took those pictures, you would load the film back into this little tube. I'd bring it to Target and they would develop it, aka they would print the pictures for me. And that would cost me another like $7, $8 if I remember right, maybe more even. So getting 24 pictures would cost me total with film and developing maybe $20, something like that. So Kodak, this major company that made film, they actually developed, I believe, the first digital camera. But they realized that if they started selling this camera, they wouldn't make as much money off film. So they decided not to pursue that as a new product. Obviously, digital cameras caught on. They were not the ones that were making the money off it, so their stock price went way down. Had they been the first to really sell digital cameras, their stock probably would have gone way up. Next up is celebrities. I'm sure some of you probably use Snapchat on your phones. This happened back in 2018, but Kylie Jenner, this celebrity, I don't really know what she's famous for, but she tweeted out, "So does anyone else not open Snapchat anymore? Or is it just me? This is so sad." So she's kind of implying that Snapchat was losing its popularity. And that one tweet caused Snapchat stock to go down about 6%, which means the company lost $1.3 billion in value just from one celebrity's tweet. So that shows how fickle the movement can be. Another example was President Trump. When he would tweet something that was positive about a company, that company's stock value would go up. If he said something negative about a company, that stock value would go down because he has a lot of influence. So Boeing is the largest airplane manufacturer in the world. If you've ever flown on an airplane, it's probably built by this company. But back in 2018, they had a plane crash, and unfortunately, everyone on board lost their lives. Stock value went down. But over time, the stock value started building back up, and then they had another plane crash, which caused their stocks to go down again. So obviously, if you have your planes crashing, it's going to maybe make airlines think, maybe we shouldn't buy their planes because they keep crashing. So that really hurt their company. So when a company kind of screws up or accidents happen, normally makes their stock price fall. This was a company called Enron, whose stock was doing great until people learned that they were doing a lot of illegal, shady things and fraudulent things in the background, and it caused their company to go basically completely bankrupt. So if you own Enron stock and you held on to it, you lost everything. Some people actually went to jail for this. Global pandemics can cause stock prices to bounce around. Surprise, surprise. So you can see here, stocks are going up, 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 up. And then we had this huge drop. That was when COVID first really started spreading around our country. So a lot of people lost a lot of money, but you can see here pretty quickly, surprisingly quickly, values were brought back up. What else? So next thing that you need to know, and this is something you hear about on the news and stuff, if you hear about the Dow Jones or the NASDAQ, these are called market indexes. So when I, as a teacher, give a test, if I want to know how my students did on it, I can either look at each individual student's score, but realize I have 150 students or something, so that would take quite a while. So what a lot of teachers do, just to get a quick look at how the test went, is you look at the average. You see how the class did on average. If the average score was 91%, it meant my students did great. If the average score was a 62%, it means it was a challenging test. And we can kind of do the same thing with the stock market if we want to know how stocks did on a given day. We look at what's called a market index. So what it does is it takes a whole bunch of stocks and kind of averages them together so we can see how they did overall instead of looking at all these hundreds, thousands of different companies on a given day. So you've maybe heard of the Dow Jones. It's a collection of some really important companies in our countries. A lot of these companies you're going to know: Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Apple, Microsoft, Disney. Some of them you might maybe not know: United Healthcare, Merck, DuPont. But they're all major industries. Another important one is the S&P 500. This is a collection of the 500 biggest companies in our nation. And again, most of these, if not all of them, you've probably seen before: Google, Netflix, FedEx, McDonald's, Starbucks, Disney, Colgate, like the toothpaste company, Twitter. So if we look at how the S&P 500 did today, if it went up 2%, that means for most of these companies, their value went up during the day. If it went down, 12%, it means that they had a real rough go of it that day. That brings us to what's called a bull market and a bear market. So if you think of a bull, when it attacks someone, uses its horns and they charge at you and they swipe up. So if you're in a bull market, it means that stocks are going up. So that means people and businesses are making money. That's a good thing. So again, if stocks are increasing in value for a long period of time, you're in a bull market. Again, that's good news. If you think of a bear, they got those big old claws. When they attack, they swipe down, trying to tear off your face and stuff. So a bear market is the opposite. It's when stocks are going down over a period of time. And that's not good news. It normally means that your economy is struggling for whatever reason. But it means businesses and individuals, they're losing money. So So those are the basics of how the stock market kind of works, and it can get so much more complex than that. But for 8th grade economics, we don't really need to get more complex than that. So I would recommend, again, going into the slides and going into watch